my Sweet 16, I wore Timbs under my dress. I wore Timbs and I had a North Face over my Sweet 16 dress. I kept it real Brooklyn.
So for starters, what up, Jixie baby?
Hello, darling. Hello.
We got the one of the dopest, and I mean, when I say this, growing up, it wasn't a collectible for me. It was just like, I loved sneakers so much that I had, okay, first of all, I was a Catholic schoolgirl. There was no other way to tell that I was from Brooklyn and I knew what was popping unless if my feet or my glasses were saying it.
Right. Your statement pieces.
My glasses. That was the only way I could, that people knew, because I was very petite too. I was very, very little. So it was like, how can I make noise? How am I gonna get respected? And that was me. I always stuck to sneakers. My father owned a grocery store. So next door to the grocery store, there was a sneaker store. So anytime something dropped, the guy would come next door and be like, yo, for your daughter. And he'd be like, let me get them. Let me get them. So I was lucky like that. But hearing your story, knowing your story, and the whole love and passion that went behind, and truly being that. And I know you don't like the word sneakerhead too. I remember us getting into this, and I know you don't like that. So we're gonna talk about all of that. Get into all of that. Once I'm done, chop me up. But
I will.
We have a true love, you know, and I want you to tell the people for the love of where this sneaker love came from.
So for the people who don't know me, like Jacina does, my name is Jixie. I'm from Bushwick, Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn all day, every day. So I grew up in the 80s with parents who were very young, very much into hip hop culture. My father was a DJ. He was always in tune. Like we went from disco in the house to freestyle to rap to new wave. Like we were very eclectic, so it was always loud music banging. It was like kind of the trap crib, everybody's chilling, smoking coming through. So I grew up in that environment, but I grew up with a mom who was very aware that she wanted to change my life and she wanted me to do something different, because I expressed to her always intelligence and just wanting to learn. And no matter how much and how ratchet our crib was, the one thing that was always there was that I love to read the encyclopedia. I would pick just wherever it lands, just open it up, read it. It was at a point where she used to punish me with books, because she used to be like, just go to your room and read. You can't do nothing else. And I would go and stuck myself in my room for days and days.
Oh, I just thought Matilda.
And I used to acquire knowledge. And that's something that, even growing up in that environment, just because I wasn't allowed to go hang out with my friends very young, late at night. I wasn't allowed to sit on the block. There's better things I could have done with myself. So I used to go to dance class, singing class. Like I was never around. I was always very busy. So during that time, I used to go on Saturdays with my pops, and we used to go get something to eat from the diners, waffles, eggs, and then we used to go fix the car. He used to go buy his stuff, change his windshield wipers, put oil, whatever he needed to do, and then we would go to a sneaker store. That was our thing. And we would go, and he would be picking his sneakers, I would be picking mine. So as years progressed, I mean, I remember asking for a pair of sneakers at 6 years old. So I specifically remember asking for a pair of, I'm Puerto Rican, so I say Elisi, right? Because they were Elisis. We're heavy with the E's, right? But Elisi, right? Because that's how the world wants to pronounce it. So fine, we'll pronounce it your way, world. Yeah. So I asked my mom for some Elisis, and it was just from a very young age. I saw how enthusiastic my dad was. We enjoyed it. And then I loved the feeling that I had. I would go to school and people would pay a lot of attention. Older people would stop my mother and say, her sneakers are so cute. And it was just our statement piece. It was the way I expressed myself. So it started in public school. It started with me at 6 years old asking for an Elisi. And then as I got just a tiny little bit older, by 8, 9 years old, I had every Reebok, every color. It was like the sneaker that opened me up to wanting to have a lot of sneakers. And then I also went to a school where we wore uniform. So I went to Philippa Schuyler 383 it's a gifted and talented school. We wore uniform. So the only way to express myself was through sneakers. Right. So I used to come through with all the new Jordans. I used to come through with everything, Filas, everything. And it's crazy because most of my Jordan collection, which is original OG retro, OGs that they're retroing now, I paid $65 for them. This passion just, it kept going and going. And then eventually I used to, by like 10, 11, 12 years old, I was on the train by myself already. I was traveling to Soho. I was traveling to the Bronx. I knew what sneaker was where. So I used to go to Harlem for, you know, certain sneakers, and then downtown Brooklyn for other street sneakers. I used to go to Quick Strike and Graham and get some Air Max. And then, you know, you could go to the Bronx and Harlem and find some good AF1s.
I used to troop to Harlem to get my Coogee.
Coogee I used to buy in S&D. So
yes, the one I wanted though, they didn't have it there, and I had to go out there.
When I got to high school was all about fashion and getting fly. I went to Washington Irving, which was a school mixed with a little bit of Brooklyn, but it was mostly Harlem and the Bronx. So it was Harlem, Washington Heights, and the Bronx all day in that school. So Harlem loved to get fly. So they came fly.
In Harlem, bro, that is fuego when it comes
15
to
floors. My high school was 15 floors. So it was just mad kids. Whoa. And it's like, how do you stick out in a school with 15 floors, right? And that's not something I thought about. But now that I think about it, it's like I stuck out because my sneaker game was always just stupid. It got to a point where I became a very cocky in high school about how smart I was. So I stopped doing work because in junior high school, I was already at a 12th grade reading level. I already ran through every Shakespeare, dissected Shakespeare. Like there was nothing that I could have learned that wasn't the pure analytics at that point. It had to be analytical for me. So when I originally got accepted to a private high school. I went to that school for a month. I got into a fight. I got expelled. I had to go to school next to my father's job. So I went to this school, Washington Irving. They put me there and I'm like, fuck it. It's better than Bushwick. I'll try it. I'll try anything. I'm just not going to Bushwick. So I went there and I loved my curriculum because we did art and I wanted to do something easy because I just spent 4 years of my life like hyper studying. The school was progressive, so we used to do work really fast. And I used to just have 3 hours of homework a night. I just wasn't up for it anymore. I was like, I want a little bit of life as a teenager. So I go to Washington Irving. It's a fucking fashion show. Everybody's chilling, smoking, whatever. 9th grade, I did that shit in 6th grade. I was like, piece of cake. So I would cut school a lot. But then when I go to school, I aced the test. I aced the quizzes. There were hundreds on everything. And my teachers used to be like, I don't know how you're doing this. Oh, I don't know if you're cheating or what you're doing, but you don't come to class. So my attendance looked like shit when I graduated high school. Wow. But I never got anything less than an A. I've always been an A student. So my mother didn't fuck with me because she was like, your grades are still good. I don't know how. What are you doing? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I learned this already. I learned it. But one semester, because it was only one semester, I got a 65. And I didn't want my father to know that I got a 65 just because he would have been so disappointed. I was his superstar. So I didn't want to do that. It was a very early system in the Department of Education. I hacked in there and I changed that 65 to a 90. And it's so funny because I told my father that literally like 5 years ago. I was like, yeah, in 11th grade, I failed like I was getting 65s in 2 classes. I hacked in and I changed my grades. He looked at me and he was like, I should have known. He was like, I should have known. He was like, I should have known. He was like, I'm so stupid. He was like, how didn't I not know that my daughter was capable? He was like, I should have been more on point. But he was a young dude. He was like 30 years old. I'm like, well, you had kids early, so you didn't know that you were going to have a brainiac that was going to change her grades. So just being in that environment, it's like I used to come outside at night. I used to see the D-boys in the street. In Washington Irving, it was a lot of street dudes. I always was enamored by men's feet. I always loved to look at men's sneakers. And I always used to be like, those are hard. And I grew up with guys at home who like sports. So it was like I would sit down and all of a sudden I'm like, he's wearing those today. I need those 12s. I need those 12s. So it was just like seeing Jordan play in his sneakers, seeing Rodman, seeing, you know, everybody come out in their kicks at the time. One of my favorites is the Reebok Kamikazes, which are Sean Kemp's sneaker. It's his line. Those are like one of my favorites. So seeing Sean Kemp playing Rain Man in his sneakers, like all of that, it heightened it for me. And it also helped me understand what was the next trend. Because I'm like, if they're coming out with those, they're going to have those, you know. For example, Bulls played the Pistons. So now I know there's definitely going to be a Pistons colorway coming out of a Jordan. Like, it's definitely going to happen. So it was like, there's reasons why some of these sneakers are so iconic and important. If you don't know the history, you don't know why. You just like a color. Yep. So it's like, I got to live through all of that at the time that was happening. I never at the time consider myself a collector or consider myself like anything but more than I just love sneakers. And it wasn't cool back then. My family made fun of me. You know, my grandmother, she used to be like, oh, your parents teach you shitty shit like sneakers. And you only go to school so you could get a new pair of sneakers. And I'm like, and the point, because every time I took a quiz, I used to hit my father with it. And I used to be like, yeah, look, I got 100. I need a new pair of sneakers. He couldn't stand me. Till this day, he tells me that he's so glad the one thing he's glad is that he don't buy me sneakers anymore. But you know what? My mother was sporty. My mother used to dress sporty. My mother used to wear the Sergio Valentes and throw on Reebok. And my mother was
my favorite jeans. My mom was real
sporty. When my mother was pregnant of me, she had blue hair. She was into like David Bowie. She used to rip her clothes. Like, my mother's always been stylish, but very streety, very sporty. She used to dance, so she used to wear a lot of sneakers to dance. So it's like, I grew up so submerged in that hip-hop sportswear lifestyle that I just understood it so much. And as I got older, I was able to celebrate it and do my own thing. So I used to go and put sneakers on layaway still with my own job. I used to go put a pair on layaway. By the end of the week, when my father goes to pick up his shit, and it was this spot on Knickerbocker called Angelo's. It was a shoe sneaker store, but he had a Nike account. So he used to have all the Jordans, all foams, all kinds of stuff. So I used to go in there, put a pair of sneakers on layaway. When my father would walk in, he would be like, oh, and your daughter got sneakers here. You want to take them? And my father used to be like,
I guess.
Yes. Give me them. Because he hated that. He was so embarrassed that I used to do that. And I used to do it every fucking week to a point where it was just not called layaway anymore. It's called go get Jasmine sneakers. They're on hold. Her sneakers are on hold. You got sneakers there? He used to scream for me for the room. You got sneakers or what? And I'm like, yeah, go get 2 pairs. I got 2 Air Max over there. It got to a point where he used to like what I wear, and he wanted the same ones. So till this day, my father sends me sneaker pictures of what he's wearing, and we'll have a battle, and I'll send him what I'm wearing, and he's like, I smoked you. And I'm like, you wish, you old head. And we start fighting over like sneaker stuff. But I don't like the sneakerhead word because it came out when the word crackhead came out, you know? So it's like, it means all you care about is sneakers, all you know is sneakers. You don't care about anything else. You ain't got no money. You don't give a fuck about nothing. You just eat, smoke, and breathe sneakers. People made fun of me for liking sneakers, you know? It was like, you'll grow out of it, you know? Oh, you're gonna grow out of that. That's only when you're young. Or I used to hear, grown women wear shoes. You gotta wear shoes. When you wear shoes, you're a grown woman. And I used to hear all these different comments, and I'm just like, I'm never gonna love not being comfortable. Like, that's just who I am. Like, I just celebrate sneakers in a way that's like, not only is it medicinal, but it's like, it's part of who I am. So it's like, if I'm going to a wedding, and my father hated that shit. I used to do weddings. My Sweet 16, I wore Timbs under my dress. I wore Timbs, and I had a North Face over my Sweet 16 dress. I kept it real Brooklyn. Why should I wear shoes when nobody's gonna see it? I had Timbs on, and it was dead in the middle of winter. I always just love to get lost on my own and put my Walkman on, my big yellow Walkman. And
I had them. Wait, were they all yellow back in the days? What was up?
Nah, that was the waterproof ones.
That was the waterproof one, right? Oh my God, with the rubber all around it.
So I used to take my Walkman, and then it became the Discman, the yellow Discman. And I used to get on the train, and I used to take all my jewelry off. I used to look like a regular little girl, schoolgirl. And I would go take my ass to the Bronx. I would take my ass to Fordham. I would take my ass to 145th, 125th. And I would just listen to my music, get lost, and go sneaker shopping by myself from a little girl. Till this day, it's so weird. People be like, oh, let's go shopping. I don't like to shop with people. I like to go by myself. It's my therapy.
Yeah.
So I still, to this day, I'll go and get lost in sneaker stores. And it's crazy because that's my Saturday morning routine till this day. So all of this just came from home, and now it's commercialized. So now it's like, before it was just us poor people. White people didn't like sneakers unless you were into sports kids. Because as an adult, I've met a lot of people that grew up in Wisconsin, Utah, Minnesota, just different people from different walks of life who have loved sneakers as long as I have, since a kid. But they loved it. Their reason was sports. So you have a lot of little girls that play softball, basketball. They love sneakers. So they love Nike Cortez. They love different sneakers that was relevant to their location. Because sneakers are relevant to your geographic location. The reason in New York, we love Jordans. We love Air Force Ones. We love Air Max. We love foams. Because those are concrete sneakers. They're sneakers that are meant to pound the pavement. You try to wear a pair of foams in Miami, your feet is cooking. So with that said, the brands won't send 1,000 pairs of foams to release in Miami because they're not wearing them over there.
That is so, oh my God. I love the knowledge you spit, Jixie.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, and working with Nike, working with Reebok, when you did.
Yeah, so that's what I was getting into. It's like, I started off with writing first. So first I started just for creativity and just to release from school and work. I would write for different blogs about sneakers. So I would do like sneaker reviews. I would do sportswear writing. So that I probably started doing like 10 years ago. Then I got into really understanding the business and understanding, because my background in business is in marketing and in branding. It's just not in fashion. So my background helped me understand the business of it, because once I put two and two together, it's a wrap for me. So I understood sportswear and where we were at. Then I started producing events. So I had like a Jumpman women's brunch. There was 23 invited women. It was very curated. It was very pretty. So it was like just a beautiful ambiance. The walls were cement print. It was like so pretty. So those were one of my cool events that I did. No, that wasn't my first. My first was the Air Max event in 2015. So I did an Air Max event in 2015 that was so cute. It was always for women. My events are always catered to women because I always want to educate. I always want to educate women. So I started doing events. Then I started developing content for brands. So I worked on like the Reebok podcast. I wrote a whole narration of it that was like taking us from the beginning of Reebok all the way to the end. So the Reebok podcast was by Reebok. It's on their website. It was about the 5411 because it's a shoe that I collect the most. And it's interesting because they interviewed 50 women for that spot for the podcast. And I wasn't one of the first that they thought of. So they got halfway through the 50. So they got to almost 24 women. And what they told me was, from the 24 women that they interviewed, all of them mentioned my name. They were like, if you're talking about Reebok, you have to talk to Jixie. And that's because nobody collects Reebok anymore. There's quite a few that like it now. And I give myself all the credit. I introduced so many women back to loving the 5411 that would not necessarily say they collect it, because it wasn't cool to collect it. It's cool to be a Jordan collector. It's cool to be that. But to be a Reebok 5411, first of all, they were the chicken head sneakers for a long time, right? We call them the chicken heads in Brooklyn. Let's keep it real. Because a lot of these brands, they living off of the nostalgia of their brands, but some of those products didn't have a good reputation. But there's just brands right now that are living off of a legacy that you ain't really have that props in the street like that. Like, you weren't the go-to, but now you are the go-to. And different cultures adopted it. So like Japanese culture, Chinese culture, they adopted our streetwear style and love it. And so they say like polo. Low Lifes was a Brooklyn thing. So when I was young, I was super into polo. Like, sneakers and polo was, my father used to be like, all my money goes on this thing right here, known as my daughter. Because I used to drip head to toe in polo, socks, bags, everything. Polo with the matching sneakers, with the socks over the jeans so that you could see my socks with polo, like everything. And that was a culture that started in Brooklyn. My homegirls were boosters. I bought everything half price. And go down the line, look how mainstream polo has become. There's documentaries about it. And now we're at a point where the Kylie Jenners, the Kardashians that are celebrating this culture and this clothing and this lifestyle that really wasn't about being glamorous. This lifestyle was just about making a statement that you fresh and you dope and you fly and give you a status in the hood.
That's right. It was a lifestyle too. It was something we put our like that was what was motivating us, because we lived in such, you know what I'm saying? We lived in such hard times. We lived with such a struggle. There was such a struggle behind what we were all going through.
People, especially like people I went to school with, they cannot understand how I grew up. They can't understand the lifestyle at all. And it's like some of them come from foreign countries. And when you come from like India or something, you go through it too. You go through being very poor, but it's a different kind of poor when you're in danger. And the difference is like we were in a very dangerous environment here in New York. Just because it was very lawless, a lot of things were planted here just to fuck us up. And I think it was just for real estate, because New York was always going to be the mecca of real estate in America, even though Cali's doing numbers. But we had crack here. Crack was here first, you know. Crack came straight to the Bronx. You know, crack went and fucked up the Bronx. The Bronx is still reaping the effects of what crack did to them.
Right.
So it's like you have that. But at the same time, when you have the struggle, when you have pandemics, right? And that's what I'm excited about right now. When you put New Yorkers on their face, on the floor, on the bottom, we birth things. We are creatives. We are strong. So it's like, look what happened. You had a crack epidemic and then you had hip hop right after. So it's like, it birthed hip hop. Hip hop birthed sneaker culture. It kept going from there. So it's like, there was a big debate over who created sneaker culture, race-wise. That was recently, last week. I didn't want to get involved in it because that's a sensitive topic. But it hurt my soul and it pierced my soul to sit here and say that a race can claim a culture. Yeah, you know what? A race can claim hip-hop because we clearly know that story. Like, we pinpointed it to the person who started spinning hip-hop, right?
Right.
So you can put it back to a person. But even hip hop, right? Hip hop was a collective, you know, in New York we see it, but other places in the world does not know, right? Here in New York, you had Black and brown people, right? You had all kinds of browns, you know, you had African Americans and not even, because a lot of Black people in Brooklyn are West Indian. We got a lot of West Indians here. So it's like Flatbush or Jamaican, Bayesian, Haitian, you know, we full of West Indians. So it was like West Indians. And at the time in the 80s, you have Puerto Ricans, because there was a big migration in the 70s and 60s of Puerto Ricans into New York. So you didn't even have that many Mexicans. You didn't have that many Dominicans. You didn't have other cultures. It was predominantly, these streets were Puerto Rican and they were Black. And we together celebrated hip hop. So when you look at Wild Style, you look at those old movies about hip hop, early hip hop, you're always going to see pioneers that are Puerto Rican. You're always going to see pioneers that are Black. You're always going to see the dancers. Most of the dancers, the B-girls and the B-boys, they were Puerto Rican. That was our thing. We always been dancers, you know? We always been there shaking our asses. So it was like that was the culture. But you know what's crazy is that I was listening to a very old sneaker interview because, you know, that's my shit, just to dig in the crates.
Yeah.
So I was listening to a really old interview that Bobito Garcia was giving about sneakers. And one of the jewels that he dropped that was like, wow, facts, was that people were rocking Adidas in the 80s, right? But it was the Puerto Ricans that were rocking it with fat laces. So it's crazy how fat laces was started by a culture and then adopted by others. So then Run DMC used to take the laces off of their Adidas. They wore no laces. They just wore the tongues up. And then a lot of people started rocking the fat laces and putting them in the Adidas. But fat laces were worn on other sneakers before. Pumas, it was worn on others. But to make it mainstream, it was really the dancers that wanted to rock it for the effect. And they wanted to see the laces fluttering. So Bobbito was like, he's been around since the beginning of time with hip hop and with sneakers. He's somebody that has been vocal about sneakers, and it's in print. So he's been vocal about sneakers since the 80s, like, and spoke about it. So he's somebody that you can consider a pioneer with respect to the culture of it. But that whole argument over who started it, what color, and it's like, I had to get involved. So here I am on YouTube. As much as I wanted to avoid this, I go on YouTube and I see my friends, you know, I see my peers, the people that I love. I don't see color in their sneaker game. And I can see their experience in sneakers through the sneakers that they wear. And I can see where they're from through the sneakers that they wear. Because a lot of people in New York don't wear the Cali sneakers. A lot of people in Texas don't wear the Cali sneakers. A lot of people in Miami don't wear the Minnesota sneakers. So I could see like where you're from, your age range, all kinds of things. So here I see my peers and I'm like, yo, let's have this conversation, you know? So I'm watching them and it feels good to let them get it out because my mother's a Black Puerto Rican. So that's one thing. And my father's real white.
My father's Black Puerto Rican too.
My father's a Black Puerto Rican. And as you know, Black Puerto Ricans, they face the same amount of oppression. And it's crazy because you face it from within your family.
That's right. That's something
and it's crazy
that a lot of people don't understand in our culture, within our own family. Like we have the light-skinned aunt who's like, oh, you know, look at your hair's too curly.
Yeah. You got morena hair, or
yes.
The nose, nariz, you know, the features. So it's one thing to be oppressed by society. It's another thing to be oppressed by your own family.
Right.
So to feel like you different from your family growing up is really bad. To feel like you were supposed to change yourself, to feel like you wish you were somebody else in your family because you are the singled out dark person, because Latins are Blackophobic naturally. So it's like, even in their culture, every Latin country has Blacks. So it's like, you know, I go to Honduras. Honduras has a whole they have towns of Blacks that speak a language that's a hybrid of Spanish and African.
Wow.
So they have Garifonas. And the Garifonas, they speak this language that is clearly African. Clearly. Like you hear the sounds and you hear the dialect and you're like, but then you hear a Spanish word in between. And I'm like, but what they talking? And my grandmother's like, that is a language that just stemmed from this African slaves and the mix of Spaniards. And these are the people that are left in these towns. Now we fast forward and we are sitting here where I'm listening to this conversation. It has to happen. That's one thing that I do agree with. The conversation of race in sneakers has to happen because the hood culture has been over saturated into the commercial market, into the trendy market, to a point where the Kardashians wear braids, to the point where, you know, I never wanted to wear cornrows because cornrows wasn't for my hair. And I never wanted to wear cornrows because cornrows is what you do when you ain't got nothing to do to your hair. You're trying to let your hair grow. It's not the style.
When the half up, half down with the bun up here and the loose hair in the back, when I seen that at the Grammys, I was like, what? There was times where I couldn't do nothing with my hair. I would just grab it, put it in a bun up here, let the curls be in the back, and you know, so
that's your bum hairstyle. That's your bummy hairstyle, right?
Yes.
So, and the same thing when I saw Rihanna in the Grammys with a doobie and bobby pins. And it's like, you took our hood culture, right? Rihanna, she's a feisty Bayesian, so I let her rock with that. I'm like, Ma, you knew what you were doing. You knew what you were doing. But you wanted to make it cool. Heard you, because it was cool. After that, everybody was doing nice clips in their doobies.
Forget that's when the fancy hebillas came on. I'm saying hebillas, bobby pins, guys, bobby pins.
Bobby pins. So it's dope how it's dope when you do it within your own culture. I find it a little inappropriate when you get a little too extra. And it's not about race to me. It's just about where you symbolize who you are and where you're from. So it's like, you grew up in Orange County, super duper rich, right? You don't know our struggle. You don't know why we do our hair like this. You don't know why we dress the way we do, but you want to do it because it looks cool. But it wasn't cool to us at the time. You know, there's certain hairstyles that represent to us the struggle, right?
Straight up.
A ombre now was, you can't get your roots done.
Girl.
Mad, we've been rocking ombres because we've been needed our roots done.
Oh
so
my God. Oh, you were trying to let it grow out because it had already damaged your hair so much. So let me just let it grow out. I'm gonna have to
let it grow out. So it's like you take and you mainstream these. So I get it. So in Spanish and Black culture, you know, in Spanish culture, anybody dark in our family, the first thing you do is label them dark. You call them negra, you call them morena, you label them. And from there, they develop a complex. So my mother I had to watch my mother defend herself. You know, my mother used to say, I is a Black woman. You know what I'm saying? My mother would sit there and let people know, you looking at me because I'm Black. And my mother was very vocal about that. And I had to grow up, you know, watching people not want to rent an apartment because they thought my mother was Black, you know, or ask my mother if she's babysitting me and my brother, you know, because we couldn't be hers, you know, we were too light to be my mother's, you know. And people tell me, oh, you don't understand, you will never understand. My darling, I grew up with a very dark mother, you know what I'm saying, who lived in oppression in her own family, who felt like a black sheep, who felt like she wanted to be light, who felt like all the injustices in her life was because she was dark, you know. And to actually see people discriminate and hate on her, and to actually see her be oppressed as a Afro-Latina. And at the time, there was no phrase Afro-Latina. There was no empowerment for it. So they just suffered through it. You know, they just suffered with being labeled and having to own that shit. And it's like, that's the truth in Spanish. And it's crazy because my grandmother, she's my color, my hair, right? My grandmother's worldly, though. I'm my grandmother's kid. So she was in the South in the 60s. She used to go down there, go hang out, travel, talk to people from other universities. She was all about that. So when she got to this country, she did a lot of like exploring. So when she would go to the South, and I don't know why I thought anything different. I don't, as smart as I am, I don't know why I thought anything different. I asked my grandmother, but where you sat on the bus? She's like, what do you mean where I sat? In the back? She was like, you don't sit in the, I'm like, we didn't sit in the front. And I'm like, I don't know why in my head, not that I ever thought I'm white, but I don't know why in my head I envision as Latin somewhere else. And I'm just like, she was like, if you were not white, you were colored.
That's right.
So if you were not white, you were colored. So you sat in the back, you were called names, and they didn't understand if you were Puerto Rican or where you're from. They just call you Mexican. So, you know, she went through in the South. You go through a lot of oppression, and it's like you go through and you feel it the same way. So I don't know why sometimes, you know, we share the same story culturally with African Americans. It just hasn't been documented to the extent that the African Americans have documented it. But you have a lot of Latins who have went through it.
Were most likely going through that slavery too. You know,
we were, because there was a lot of work for free when they came into, like, you know, the Taino Indians, when the Spaniards came and took over Puerto Rico, they started killing, you know, making the Tainos work alongside the slaves, killing them. The Tainos and the Indians is who made most of Puerto Rico, because not all of us have European genes. But this debate was really about who started the culture. So who did start the culture, right? The culture was started in the hoods of America, right? So with the emergence of rap came the need to be comfortable, because you had to dance. You had to be a b-boy, you had to be a b-girl. So you had to be comfortable, so you had to rock fly kicks. Then in the early 80s, you know, when hip-hop was emerging, you had Run DMC come out. They were the first group to be given an endorsement by any sneaker brand. So they were endorsed by Adidas. And it just happened because they was just rocking Adidas and they looked fly, and everybody wanted to rock it their way and everybody wanted to look like them. So that's what happened with them. So then from there, sneakers just became, you're well aware of it in the hip hop culture. The first thing you do is look at an artist, how they dress, what's on their feet. And then people started to understand it's a reflection of the streets. So it's a reflection of our status symbol. It's a reflection of what we do. So it started in the streets. It started in the hood. It was something that we had to do to glorify. And it's a mix of races. It's a mix of colors. So it's a mix of, you know, it's crazy because there's so many chinos that grew up. I grew up with some straight Chinese dudes that I went from elementary school. I still know them. And they're from this dead center of the same block I'm from. And they love sneakers. They love hip hop. They love culture. So who's to say that another race is more predominant in highlighting and being part of a culture than just somebody who grew up in the hood and was dead in the middle of it? So it's like, I don't attribute race to the start of the sneaker movement. I attribute the struggle in the hood, just like rap. So it's like, who loved it more? Granted, the hood did over the suburbs, because the suburbs had more. They had houses, they had backyards, they had
good grass, girl.
amazing food. They were rolling in the grass. We didn't have shit. We had a block that we had to defend ourselves through. So I learned a lot about like sneakers and collecting. And I don't want to say collecting, just copping fly kicks from a lot of the drug dealers outside, because they were the ones every Friday you come outside, you see everybody parked up, you see everybody on the corners, and everybody's coming out in their fly kicks. And you just, you know, you ain't even looking at somebody sneakers, like looking at them, you side-eyeing them like, oh shit, them shits is fire. You know what I'm saying? And you want people to ask you. At that time, it's crazy because you wanted people to say, what are those? I wanted people to always ask me, what you wearing? I don't want you to know what I'm wearing. I don't even want you to know where I got this from. This is my shit. I'm fly, and that's it. Nowadays, you say, what are those? It means you're wearing a funky sneaker.
Seriously.
But back then, what are those was a compliment. You wanted a what are those? Because I wanted people to be like, what you wearing, yo?
It's such a gem that you said right there, Jixie, that back in the days, because it was so big to me, that the moment my homegirl got a pair of sneakers, it was like I had to get them, because if anybody got them in the circle, that's it. We weren't all walking around with the same pairs of sneakers.
No, you couldn't, because
once my homegirl got them, it was a wrap. And now we live in such a culture that it's like, you have to have what they have. Everybody,
because it's so many now. It's so many people doing it. So it's like you want to be like the so many popular people doing it. Where before, it was just like I wanted, at the most, me and my friend had two different colors, and we would rock one and one.
Yeah.
That's it. But we're not getting the same sneaker, because I'm gonna be known for my shit and you're gonna be known for your shit.
How many fights I got into some of my closest friends because I would come in one day with a pair of sneakers, 4 days later you come in, girl, you had a whole 4 days, you couldn't find something else? No.
I know. I was petty about that. Like, if you were my friend and you came outside with the same sneakers as me, nah, son, you wildin'. Like, we not wearing the same
sneakers. They used to get on me all the time. Like, I remember even when I got my Vans in, one of my girls wanted to get the set, and I was just like, bro, I saved so much for this Vans in.
You still have it?
Yeah, I still have it.
I still have my Vans in too.
Girl, all my stuff is in my grandmother's house.
We need to have a Vans in day.
Museum at my grandmother's house. We need
to have a Vans in day. I love my. When I seen Tiana Taylor pull out her Vans in for the Gonna Love Me video. When she pulled it out, I said, my shit coming out right now. My shit coming out right now. Because I had a flower one. I went to the Genesis store and I copped a Vanson, and they used to customize the back of your Vanson with the star. And they used to replace the Genesis with your name. So I remember I went to go cop a Vanson. I thought I was the shit. I was like, yeah, yo, I got my shit. And then I put it away because that shit was a dub for years. I was like, I spent all that money and it's whack. And then when I seen her in it, I said, I'm coming out with it. It's a wrap. And I got so many compliments on it. People were like, yo, Vanson's dope. That's so hard. I was like, thank you. It's vintage. But that's what it was. It was about getting fly.
Yep.
It wasn't the doctors and the lawyers and the cool business people wearing sneakers. It was the hood. It was the dope boys on the block that always had the fire kicks, the new kicks, the most newest sneakers. And what I used to do was I used to be looking at them and I'm like, just came out last week. And I used to one up them. And that's how I started getting a lot of respect, because when the dope boys were asking you, what's that? Where you got those at? I ain't telling you. Jay always come through with the shit, yo. And I'll never forget, one day I walked by a whole group of dudes, and they were the regular dudes from my block, from around the corner. And I was wearing a pair of gray and pink Bo Jacksons. They didn't even come out yet. So I had these dope, they were white with gray and pink. It's the summer. I'm walking and they're like, yo, those are Bo Jacksons? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, damn, you stay on it. And I'm like, yeah. And I remember feeling like I had the biggest dick in the world. I was like, oh, I gotcha. And it was crazy because it was like, I did like North Face Extreme. I did that shit first. I remember paying $500 to get that shit from Tenton Trails early. The minute they got a sample from North Face, I took their sample. Then like things like foams. At that time, foams weren't made for women. So they didn't have even small sizes. It was very few that you had a size 6 or 7. Yeah. Very few models of foams had those sizes. Mm-hmm. So as a kid, it's crazy. I always had a complex, for y'all who don't know what that is, about having bigger feet. Because I always had a little bit of bigger feet than most women. So some sneakers would look mad long on me. And I'm like, that's the reason I never wore leggings and I never was into like tight pants, because my feet look long. And I'm like, but why my feet look long? So at the time, I graduated high school at 5'3". That's how tall I was. And throughout all my little years, I was a little shrimpy girl. When I graduated high school to the summer where I went to college, I grew 4 fucking inches. So I grew to 5'7". So now my feet fit what it looked like. But back then, my feet always looked way too big for me. But at the same time, I used to always complain about it. I hated it, but I was always able to get the men's sneakers. So I was always able to get the foams, the men's fire. And people used to be like, at that time, they didn't have this whole youth adult kind of thing going on. It's either like this sneaker's for men or this sneaker comes out for kids, and that's just it. There is no, we make a size run for kids and adults. It was just like different. So I used to wear the men's sneakers, and I used to come outside with Reggie Miller's early. I was early on everything because I was traveling for so long buying sneakers that the minute people get in their order or samples, they'd be like, let me sell it to her because she's going to pay extra for it. So let me sell it to her. When 13s came out, I went to go buy the Flint 13s in a Foot Locker on Myrtle Avenue. So at the time, they didn't have their inventory system they have today. So Duke would leave the sneaker on the chair in Foot Locker in a bag, ready to go. On the chair around, I would just leave the money flat on the chair. I would take my bag and walk out the store, and he would walk by and just take that money and go to the back, and that was it. And that's how I used to get Jordans. And at that time, Jordans were like $65, $75. I used to give him like $150, $200 just to take a Jordan early. And I would be in the street. And these fucking drug dealers would be like, yo, you got Flints? Those are Flints? What the fuck? Oh, I can't wait to get those. And I used to get the streets excited. I used to get people's hearts jumping because I used to just walk around. And guys used to stop me. My father used to be like, how much you pay for those? I used to be like, I didn't pay a lot, Dad. I paid $75. He used to be like, you bought that. He was like, why he say you got those early? You pay extra? How much you pay for them? And I'm like, but I paid $75. Yo, I used to swear to everything. Everything. I blessed my grandmother today. I'm like, Grandma, I swear on you so much. I'm so sorry. And she was like, you evil little girl. And I'm like, I used to fucking sit here and have to tell, and my mother too. My mother, I used to get her because I used to tell her I paid $50 for something. I'm like, Mom, I paid $50 for that. She's like, oh, that's a good price. Mind you, I just dropped $250 on something.
For real. And back in the days, understand that's a lot. Like $250 is like nothing now. But back in the days,
that was $500 easy. I spent $250 on a pair of Tim Duncans. Right after my Sweet 16, I think I was like 17 years old. I wanted a pair of Tim Duncans. I had mad money from my Sweet 16 in the bank.
No.
So I said, I'm going to go buy those. And it was so hard to find my size because I was like the true size 7.5 probably. And I was like, I need them. So I wanted them in black. So I went and I got them. And my father knew I spent $250 on them. And he was like, oh, that's ridiculous. That's a crazy amount of money for sneakers. You're going overboard now. I can understand $100, but now you're doing $250, blah, 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 talking mad hella shit. So I'm walking with him. I got my North Face that I got early for $500. I got my sneakers for $250. I'm just looking like, rob me, I'm full of money. So I'm walking in the winter with my dad. How? I fucking slipped straight up on ice because it was like snowy. There was ice everywhere. I slipped and I literally flew in the air like this, boop. And I just went from sliding to back and I flew right back. And my father looks at me on the floor and he's like, those are them $250 trash ass sneakers you got. And I was like, oh, no. How dare you just fucking go in on my sneakers, son? I told him, you a hater. You just a hater.
God.
He was like, I'm a hater, but I'm not sliding in my $250 sneakers.
Yo,
I was like,
when the Jordan patent leather low top, red and white low top had came out, I had got them a week before. But remember, again, my father worked next door to the sneaker store, so anything they got early, they would just hook my father up. They didn't even charge him extra. Walking downtown Brooklyn, down Fulton, this girl asks me, what size are you? So I told her the size, and she was like, you lucky you're not my size. I would have ran you for your sneakers. And I was like, here I am, a Catholic schoolgirl, uniform, my sneakers, and I'm like,
why? How? I got robbed once as a kid. I got robbed down to my socks. I was like 12 years old, and I was in Broadway Junction. So they used to have all the blood meetings in that park over there in Kelly Park, right underneath from Broadway Junction. So that shit was real over there. But another part of growing up and being super fresh and super fly and super jiggy and with the shits with the sneakers was that I always had to defend myself. Because one thing is like, you know, I grew up in Bushwick was so rich. It was a Puerto Rican environment of just, I want to say degenerates, because they was wild. And I'd be like, yo, I tell my mother all the time, your generation was insane.
Oh,
yeah,
they were. Yes,
but then I get it, you know, because you had to live through a drug epidemic. You had to live through illnesses.
Some of the reasons why we don't get a lot of the credit. You know, they don't want to give us the credit of us being here in the beginning and us, you know, feeding into
we've been here side by side, and New York was predominantly literally Puerto Rican and black. That's it.
Right.
Throughout the years, then everybody else came. So then when we came in, you know, Puerto Ricans and blacks were able to live harmoniously because we were able to identify so much with each other. And because we also share the same habits, the same love, the same lifestyles, the same family traits, family love. Why? Because what people don't realize about Puerto Ricans is like, we are raised real black, like, you know, and I say that with a lot of affection because, you know, in Puerto Rico, the biggest religion over there is African derived religion. You know what I'm saying? Santeria is derived from directly. It is the closest to this day. Those words are still the same African words. So it's like, there are people that speak more African in Puerto Rico than people in Africa, you know, in South Africa. So it's like, we have that mix of traits, of culture, of, you know, foods that we eat. The same way, you know, Southern African Americans, you know, you eat chitlins, you eat that. We eat mollejas, we eat those same things too, but we just have a different name and a different way of cooking it. We've been here, we adopted each other's cultures, each other's traits. We live harmoniously, we breed together, you know, we are one. And as you see now, moving into modern civilization, we ain't shit. Puerto Ricans ain't shit to the government, you know. African Americans ain't shit to the government. Nobody ain't shit, but unless you got your money or you white, and that's just how it goes, you know. Even if you're pushing yourself in education, or even if you're pushing yourself in your career, you're always going to face some type of oppression, even as being, you know, Latina, you know. So it's like, I face so much oppression just throughout my whole existence, and it's like, it's a constant fight. So I get it. It's a constant fight to get through.
No, especially with what you're doing. especially in the sneaker game.
The women are not credited as being knowledgeable and passionate, just like the men, but from the beginning. So now there's a new thing going around that, like, women, when men weren't looking, the women decided to fill themselves up with sneaker knowledge and collect sneakers. You know, so it didn't happen harmoniously and simultaneously. It happened after the men. And it's like, no, my guy, because I collect harder and way more than 90% of what's on Instagram right now of your favorite collector. We are the mothers, we are the nurturers, we are the backbone of all these industries and all these cultures. So it's like, give us our freaking credit, because I'm gonna show you why. And it's like, that's how it's been in the sneaker community. It's like, I'm gonna show you why women are so important and women are so dope and women are so needed in sneakers. And furthermore, you know, that was my platform and my love language for a long time. Then it morphed into full figure women, because now I'm in the sneaker culture I'm in the sneaker community since I'm born. I'm analyzing myself, I'm analyzing the culture, and it's like, I've been a plus size. I was a chubby kid. So from being a chubby girl, being a chubby teen, growing up and still being a plus size woman, I work out, I'm a vegan, I'm still plus size. It doesn't matter. It's who I am. It's my body. So it's not going to change. I mean, I don't eat junk food. You know what I'm saying? I eat freaking vegan food. I changed. I did lose like 25 pounds off of it, but that was it. Like, my body structure is not going to change because of that. This is how my body just processes its metabolism, metabolizes. Because I remember being like in 5th grade and I was a size 10, 12 already in women. So being short and stubby, I would see clothes in the store and I'm like, oh, I want that. And then when I try it on, it doesn't fit me like the mannequin. It fit me a muffin top. It fit me boxy. It looked horrible. And I had to really learn. And I thank my mom a lot, because my mother was like, you can't dress like a skinny girl, darling. You got to create shape and curves, and you got to dress for your body. And my mother I used to cry sometimes. I don't got nothing to wear to go out. My mother would be like, I'm like, oh, my friends look so cute. And I look crazy. I'm so big. And my mother would be like, you know what? You don't need new clothes. You need new friends. You need big, fat friends to make you feel good. And I just was like, I can't with my mother. So this day, she's like, you don't need new stuff. You need new friends. You need friends that are big like you, so that y'all could talk about being big girls. And that shit didn't make no sense then. It makes all the sense now. Perfect. Because it's like, you have to be able to share, to identify, and to feel kind of like included. And that's the problem with plus size women. So now my platform is dedicated to not only women, but plus size women in sneakers. Because what's happened is, after we got through that hurdle of never seeing women in a sneaker campaign or addressing women, they started oversaturating the market with women's empowerment, to a point where it's like, you don't even believe in women's empowerment. You're exploiting it. You're exploiting the topic.
Totally.
So after that,
and that idea even turned women against each other. Because it was like, you're doing this because you're fake. You're doing art, or are you doing it for the culture now? Or are you doing it because you truly are about that?
Right. Because at the end of the day, if you're a brand who truly believes in women's empowerment, at the foundation, you have product for that woman. So if you truly believed in equality for women, you would make clothing and sneakers for plus size women, right? You would make clothing and sneakers for petite women, right? Because petite women share the same struggle as plus size women. And they can't find jeans that
clothes all my life.
You know, they can't wear the same denim. You know, they can't, because it's too long. They can't wear a lot of pants because it's too long. So you can't do a lot of those looks. You know, you can't do the wide leg shorts, because then you look real short. So it's like, there's certain looks that you can't do. But at the same time, if an extra small is too small for you, too big for you, then you need women's clothing that fits you, that's meant for a woman's body. Because what happens is, you start wearing boys' clothes, men's clothes. They're not made for our body. So it tugs, it pulls, it doesn't fit right. So you don't look or feel your best. Mm-hmm. So with plus size women, none of these brands made clothes ever at all for years, up until about 2 or 3 years ago, where they started making these clothing. So now you make this clothing for this woman. you don't understand how to sell it to her. You don't understand if she needs to try it on, if she doesn't, what she uses it for. So the narrative that's created is these are sporty clothes made for working out, because they want to push plus size women to work out and to be healthy. Who says we're not healthy and that the only story that brands need to tell is to work out? It's absolutely incorrect, because a person like me, and there's many other women like me, like my friend, she's plus size, she's been doing Zumba every day since the quarantine, you know. It does not mean that we don't work out, but we want to wear athleisure just like a skinny woman, and we want to wear it that it fits our body and for our taste and for our structure. So brands need to create product that is quality, that is fitted for us, and that looks good. That hasn't been done until recently. And the same thing with like big sneakers, right? Which is the same thing with little sneakers for women, right? Women who are size 12, 13, 14 sneakers, you go into a store and you ask them, I need a size 13 sneaker. You know what they're going to tell you? I have men's right here, 10 and a half, men's 11 right here. They don't have that woman's sneaker in a size 14, which is a problem, because a men's sneaker in that size is bulky for a man, let alone for a woman. It feels like a freaking boot. And even me, some of my size, I'm a size 7.5, 8 in men. Some sneakers, I can't even do that. Like a foam posit, I can never do a 7.5 in a foam. It's crushing my toes in. I have to do the 8. And I don't know why 7.5 feels so extra small, but it feels like super small. So a size 8 on me though, the ankle circumference, my ankle, I have a woman's ankle. So that ankle was made for a man. So at the end of the day, that's a big bulky ankle. I got scars on my ankles because men's sneakers are not made for women. So if you have plus size women who have or not wearing sneakers, you're not well versed on sneakers. And the first sneaker you're going to be told that you can wear in a sneaker store is a man's sneaker. But at the end of the day, that's because the brands don't have that know-how, or they don't cater to this woman. And 68% of American women are size 14 and bigger. 68%. But we're only represented in 17% of retail. The rest of retail is for regular size women. And my platform has been raising awareness to this. Like, yo, Jordan, where's women's clothes for plus size women? Nike, get a fit model. Your clothes fit like a big box. Adidas started with their plus size. I haven't even dabbled into it yet, just because Adidas has been really good about making oversized clothing. So a size extra large is easy at 2X on Adidas. Just like a size small on Adidas is huge. That shit is a dress on you.
Yes, I agree.
That shit's a dress. I already know. You wear an Adidas piece of size small, that shit is down to your knees, a dress.
Forget it. The tights, baggy. Forget it. I gotta get the kids' ones.
What was your favorite sneaker growing up, and what's your favorite sneaker now?
I have my favorite sneaker. It gotta be, I'm just obsessed.
Well, ones.
Yes, obsessed. Growing up,
I see you with your ones.
I was such a Jordan fiend. It didn't matter. It had to be Jordan. It didn't matter.
Why?
You know what? I never thought of why.
So, I think for a lot of Spanish people, we idolized Jordan himself. So many people were obsessed with, like, if you went to Puerto Rico in like the 80s or 90s, they were like, we had murals of Michael Jordan like over there, because
I love the way the kids used to say Jordan.
Jordan. Mira, Jordan. Because of the because I think we naturally, like, we love basketball on the island. Like, Puerto Ricans on the island love basketball. We are very good at basketball on the island. That's how, like, Puerto Rico beat USA one year. Puerto Rican collegiate basketball is very serious over there. So what happens is you love the fucking sneakers because you love Jordan. So
I'm such a little body.
You're such a body. So the question is it the man or is it the shoe? Everybody always asks that question.
For me, it was the shoe.
It was the shoe.
I could say I did, like, I was into the, we played basketball for PAL too, but I don't know, it was something about the shoe for me. It was something about the way my feet looked. They always looked perfect.
Small and cute. Yeah, I get it. Mine looks small and cute too.
Another thing I must say, when it came to some of the Nikes, like Air Max, I didn't get the bubble. So I didn't want the sneaker if I couldn't have the bubble because my foot was so small.
It was a terrible bubble too. They painted a fake bubble on the fuck.
A fake bubble.
How you do that? Who do that?
Who the LA Gears? The LA Gears were gonna give me a bubble. You know, you know what I'm saying?
You know what's crazy? I did not wear like Jordan. I didn't get into Jordans until junior high. Wow. Elementary school, I was already into kicks, but I didn't like Jordans. My sneaker game was very girly and very little girl. So I really love colors. So I really love the Elise. I wore an Air Force One way before I ever wore a Jordan. Wow. And that's crazy because my mother always believes, see, my mother got these, I call them sneakerhead folklore. So my mother has these rules, right? Like you don't wear white sneakers in the winter. You wear only white sneakers in the summer. In the sneaker, you transition to black. This is my mother's rules. I don't know if anybody else had these rules, but these were my mother's rules, right? I call it folklore, her folk tales. So I wore Reebok. I wore like Sean Kemp's. I wore a lot of LA Gears. I still got a lot of LA Gears. I wore all of these different British Knights. I wore all of these different brands. And then when I got into junior high, I was like, you know what? I wore Nike Cortez. I wore all these different Nikes before, like Nike Court Force High, Air Force 2s. Like there were so many Nike sneakers I liked before Jordan. Yeah. So when the One came out, and I tell everybody this and they just can't believe it, I wasn't excited about the One. So till this day, the One is still not one of my favorites. But when the 2 came out, I lost my whole mind because I like bulky basketball aesthetics. So it was like something about Jordans is they were always very narrow and because of the shape and positioning of his foot. So they were always a very narrow sneaker. I tell everybody, yo, your pinky toes didn't hurt in Jordans growing up? Everybody be dead.
No, but some of them looked long. So I would make sure I got them a half size small. I was like this, girl. Around leg.
Pretao, you was pretao in the world.
Because they were already, I was a small size. It didn't matter. It wasn't about that. It was about when I looked down this way, if they looked too, I was like, nah.
It was your complex. It was your complejo with sneakers. Everybody had like complexes with sneakers. This is such a great topic because nobody talks about their complexes with sneakers. So with me, the Jordans used to take my pinky toe. I'm talking about destroy. I will be walking, mind you, they were my size. I just had such fat feet for Jordan. So that's why I was like, oh, hell no, this gotta go. My mother, she liked the One when the One came out. I remember her picking up the sneaker and going, oh, this is sexy. And I was like, why you say that? And she was like, because you could lace it. And my mother chokes her sneakers. She was like, because you could lace it real nice and it's nice and skinny. It's a skinny sneaker is what she called it. And I looked at her and I was like, nah, I ain't with it. So I remember that day I went and I got me some Court Force Highs. They look like really high ass they look like some high ass basketball sneakers. And I love sneakers with height. Like the higher the sneaker, the more I was like, ooh. That's why now runners to me are, I love runners because I'm always going to love an Air Max. But do I really want to get into thousands of New Balance, thousands of Saucony? No, because I'm not really a runner's person at heart. And I don't like to wear runners in the winter. I don't like my ankles out and just socks. I like to cover everything.
Yeah, and that's why I'm into the Ones right now. I love the way it just looks around my ankle. But let me tell you, with the Air Maxes back in the days too, that was a sneaker that my foot looked too chunky, girl. When the lime ones came out, all right, everybody had to have them. That was the classic pair when them shits dropped. But looking down at my feet, I wasn't feeling the chunky foot. Looked like a little chuleta-ish. I was like,
the Air Max. I remember having friends that didn't like Air Max because they didn't like how bulky they were. Because when the waves popped out on the side, so back in the days, right, my mother, back with her folk tales, she didn't like sneakers that were bigger than her knees because she was a skinny woman. My mother was super, super slender. So if the sneaker, so she's slender and this is her knee. So if the sneaker looked like her knee, she was like, nah, that sneaker had to look little for her. Because she was like, nah, from the side, she would look at her knee and the sneakers. And it's crazy now because now, me and her talk about this. Balenciaga sneakers and all these big dad sneakers, the whole look is meant to be way bigger than your leg. That's the whole look of it. So, and it's funny because the only people that can pull off that trendy look where the sneaker is really big and then you're very sleek are very thin women. My mother be like, I don't know why all these skinny girls want to wear that big ass sneaker that look bigger than their whole fucking leg, their whole body. And I start cracking up because I know her complejo with having a sneaker.
That was me. I could relate with your mother. That was me, girl. Everything needed to be small. If I was small, I did not want to see my toes past my knees. If I'm sitting right here, I can see them like this.
Yeah, you don't want to see them. No, that's so funny.
You got to give us the number of sneakers. My people got to know how many sneakers we're working with over here.
So I at my highest point, I reached about 3,000 sneakers. So at my highest, I have since been trying to downsize because it's not cute. Like living with that many sneakers is never cute. I do have a storage. So I'm like constantly back and forth between home storage because I'm trying to swap shit out all the time. Like right now, I got to get ready for summer sneakers. I haven't swapped out because of COVID. I haven't went and picked up my summer sneakers and put all the winter sneakers away. Because like sneakers like foams, I'm not wearing them in the summer, but I wore them all winter. Jordan 2s have no ventilation. I'm not wearing them in the summer. Those all go away. A lot of LeBrons and a lot of big bulky sneakers, they go away for the summer so that I could wear my summer sneakers. And then I'll bring all my Air Max, the Adoras. I'll bring all those sneakers in. So I've downsized to about, and it took me like 7 years to do this, but now I'm probably at like 1,500 nice, steady, fly collection of things that I'm really proud of. But a lot of the downsizing is because of deterioration. Throughout the years, you know, I'm watching, like, I got sneakers that crumble every day, B. That's the problem. I'll open a box. You know, I crumbled in your studio. So it's like every day I'll take out a sneaker, I'll rock it. The end of the day, it's like, this one gotta go, Bendito, you're done. So then I have like a lot of new ones and that I barely wear. And then I have some, like, I still have a lot of sneakers in my dad's house from when I was young. So I tried to collect all of them, dissect the collection, pick out what I want to keep, what I don't. And over Christmas, I gave away 200 pairs of my sneakers to the homeless shelter for women. So we made like the thing is they were all almost the same size. It was like the 2 size range, 9.5 and 10. So I gave out most of those sneakers.
Which is a good size for majority of women. That's like a really, like, I feel like there's a lot of women with that size.
Even if you are a size 8, 8.5, I told women throw on and put an extra insole and throw an extra sneaker on. There'll be an extra sock and they'll be just fine. Because if you put on an extra insole, you'll take in about probably a quarter of a size, and then you go and throw in a sock that's half a size, so you go down half. So the more you do those different tactics, you could eventually fill it up. You stuff the front. I remember I used to take my Reebok and I used to stuff the whole front into a nice shape so that my Reebok don't get all misshaped with a pointed toe. If I saw a pointed toe, that means my sneaker is done. You will not see my sneaker sticking, my toe sticking out of a Reebok.
One of my favorite pairs of sneakers too, my red ones, my red Reeboks. And when they came out with the little platform,
yes,
and they were navy blue, and it was like a Gore-Tex material.
It was they call it Vibram, and it was a double, and it had ridges. They had ridges on the bottom.
That was my favorite. My foot looked like this. My foot looked this big in those sneakers. Oh my God, those are one of my favorites too.
Reebok to me, it's the sneaker that symbolized women in sneakers. It was also the first sneaker made specifically for women, and it's crazy because all women love that sneaker. White women, Black women, Spanish women, Chinese women, women who worked and women who were in the hood. So it's like, that was the working woman sneaker. You put on your big fluffy socks, your scrunchy socks, you scrunch them down in your Reeboks, you choke them bitches up, and you go on the train and you go to work.
That's right.
And like, my grandmother, she used to teach. She used to wear them as a teacher in school. She used to wear her Reebok. Then, my mom, she had all kinds of jobs. She'd been all over. So I used to see her throw on her Reebok and she was out. You know, then you see the D girls and you see the girls chilling on the corner. They in the Reeboks with the big earrings. Then you see dancers. They're with the straps all out and they're dancing. So it's like everybody wore it. But famously, Sybil Shepherd wore it to the Grammys or to the Oscars, one of the two. She wore an orange pair. And on the red carpet, she said, "You don't need shoes to be sexy." And that was in the 80s, darling. So now we fast forward and it's like still pushing that message because it's not being heard. It's crazy. We 30 years out and we're still pushing a message. But like my brother used to say, "You in those chicken head sneakers." So
cracked me up when you said that. I'm done with you.
he said that all birds wore Reebok and that's why I'm a bird. And he used to tell me that. And it's like, but to me, like, I feel like I could judge a person based on your sneakers. So when I used to meet men, you know, a guy would be kicking it to me. I'm looking at, the first thing I do is look at his sneakers because we can't date if we can't relate. And people be like, "That's so immature." But that's my starting point, because if you do have a nice pair of sneakers on and not over anything, and you fit the qualifications, then you a fly ass too, because your feet game was already fly. Like Huarache, if a guy wears a Huarache, I can never date him.
Yo.
I can never date a guy in a Huarache. I'm so sorry. Like, first of all, Huarache, I call it Horachi.
I just heard that. I'm like, wait.
And I can never unsay that. So the Huarache, they took that sneaker and they made it in every color a few years ago. So there were like 100 pairs of Huaraches running around. Yes. Everybody was in them. All the thoughts were in them. All the guy thoughts were in them. It was like a Huarache pandemic, right? So I deemed from that point on that I wouldn't rock Huaraches, even though the exception is a Huarache high, because I love high top Huaraches. I used to love those, but not Huarache lows. So the Huaraches, Nike hoard them out. They took that one model and they made 100 to 200 sneakers in a year of the same sneaker. Boom, take that. So I'd be like, yo, Nike prostituted that sneaker. Nike made that sneaker. Just like now, the new hoe is the one. That one is in every color, every collaboration. Es una puta. Yeah, they took that sneaker and they made it a slut. That sneaker's a puta already, because they made it in every color, every collaboration, every model, and they're selling it to everybody and their mother.
I don't know why I'm taking to the high top of it.
I won't argue that for women, the Jordan 1 is the most go-to sneaker because it's a balanced sneaker, right? It's narrow and it gives you that nice look and feel of a feminine sneaker while still having that Nike logo, while still having the nice colorways. So for women, it's something that we get to experience as different. It's feminine for us because not all Jordans are feminine. A lot of Jordans are very bulky. Another feminine Jordan is a 10. A Jordan 10 is very sleek.
Yes.
It's very, hold on, where is it? I got one right here. So this violet, right? So this is very sleek. It's like a 1. You see, it's very thin like the 1. It has the nice angle on the top like the 1. So it's a very sleek sneaker. So you know what? People just love it because it does the same thing. When you look at it, it's nice and thin like the 1. Yep. And nice and narrow. So it's not like a 3 where you look at a 3 and it's exploding here and exploding and exploding. So it's a very compacted sneaker, just like the 1. That's why women love this shit, because women be like, yo, 1s are dope.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine with 525,600 sneakers. No, I can't even.
Well, I only keep in the house, I only keep like 300 at the most at any time. Only because at the end of the day, I still live in Brooklyn. Let's live in reality now. I live in Brooklyn. You're not running up in my crib for no sneakers, is number one. That's another rule I have. If the sneaker's worth over $2,000, I'm not keeping it. Why? I can wear sneakers all year and still not wear every sneaker in my collection. So my sneakers, at the end of the day, I wear a sneaker today. I may have not worn it in 5 years. I'll wear one tomorrow. I may have not worn it in 3 years. So because of how I rotate my collection, they don't get enough love. And I be trying. I wear 2 different sneakers at the same time. I'll be wearing 2 different sneakers at the same time. I change twice a day. So in the morning, I'm wearing one to work. In the night, I'm wearing another one. So I try to get full use. When I remember when I was at my height and I had all these different sneakers and I had them in the crib, I had like 1,000 sneakers. Yo, there will be weeks where I want to wear one sneaker for all week. And I'm like, who does that with all these sneakers? Just like if I want to wear a pair of Vans or if I want to wear like Converse. My mother tells me I look poor. And then what the fuck is wrong? My mother be like, con tanto tenis, tú quieres eso de pobre. Tú quieres poner eso de pobre. So she gets so mad at me when she sees me in a Vans or a Converse because she thinks they're poor people's sneakers. And it's crazy because I'm like, back to your folklore, Mom. I like Converse for the aesthetic of wearing a Converse with a nice outfit. But I was never crazy about it because it never held my ankle good.
On the bottom, it's like it's nothing. We're not wearing nothing, girl. I used to play manhunt. I had them. There was one time I had
The manhunt.
ones. Yo, my God, I dogged them. I loved them. My father was like, pero you're not gonna take them off. They stunk. They everything. De todo un poco. And I was like, my pink Converses went from Jordans to pink.
My father taught me how to clean my sneakers. So my father was the one that took out the toothbrush and the soap and taught me how to clean the sneaker. And my father would clean his sneakers with everything that now you were like, you would be like, no. My father would clean his sneakers. The white part, he would clean it with bleach. He would put bleach on some fucking sneakers. He used to clean sneakers with alcohol. He moisturizes sneakers with Pond's cream. I learned about moisturizing sneakers from him.
Wow.
I moisturize my sneakers with coconut oil. So if you have a pair of leather sneakers that's very dull or it doesn't look brand new to you anymore, clean them up and take a little bit of coconut oil on a little cotton ball and just rub it around the leather areas. So you rub it around your toe box, your upper, you just rub it around there. You're going to see that it's going to instantly shine. It's going to instantly look a little new. The leather doesn't look so cracked because leather needs to be moisturized just like skin.
True.
So it's crazy. So my father used to clean. Sometimes he would use dishwashing detergent, a little bit of bleach, a little bit of oil of Pond's cream at the end. Always Pond's cream. That's his moisturizer for himself and his sneakers and everything. His leathers. He used to clean his leathers. Shout. He used to use alcohol. He used to use shit that's known now to burn the shit out of your sneakers.
I would never forget the times where I was like trying to clean my sneaker right before going outside, and I'm brushing them with the little toothbrush, girl. And all of a sudden you see the splashes, the black little dots, the splashes from the toothbrush everywhere on my shirt that I was just about to go outside in.
Oh, good. You know good with that. Mm-hmm. Sneakers, cleaning sneakers. Now I use EP Kicks. EP Kicks has coconut oil in it. So it's amazing how fast forward down the line and there is a product that's a cleaner with coconut oil. That cleans more than actual water. So that's why like I'd never put, damn it.
What?
You ever washed your sneakers in the washing machine?
Yes, I have.
Yo, when my mother used to throw my sneakers in the washing machine, I wanted to strangle somebody so bad.
What about when I put them in the dryer once and my grandma runs out the room like, what's that noise? What's that noise? You hear is brudududum, brudududum, brudududum. I was gonna tell you a story about my Yeezys. I wore them shopping recently, and I had a Zara bag, and the tinte from the Zara bag, girl, all over the sneaker.
No!
All over the sneaker, girl.
I was laughing before because anytime you put, first of all, now we learned today, you put a sneaker in a washing machine, sneakers have, their foundation has a piece of cardboard or it has a late that kind of seals at the very foundation. So when you put it in the washing machine, you kind of break up that foundation. Totally. So now you don't have the same structure anymore. So I used to feel that when my mother used to throw, first of all, I just never liked it. Like, let me clean my sneakers on the outside and let me replace my shoelaces. So it's so funny. So that's why I asked, what was your favorite sneaker before and now? Because our taste.
I just thought of two, my Bo Jacksons, the orange ones. One of my faves when those came out.
Orange Bo Jacksons. Bo Jacksons in general are just one of my favorite silhouettes. I love the shape and the style and the body of it.
Yep.
I love just the way the sneaker fits. That was my fighting sneaker. So My parents knew if I was gonna have a fight in school,
They were like,
I had a pair of red and gray bows that I used to throw on, and those would be my busting ass sneakers.
all right, so last thing, let's get to this.
Yes.
The spread love gem. I mean, let me tell you quickly, we didn't get to really talk about, you know, how many degrees you have. I feel like that's so important too. You know, she holds 3 master degrees. I mean, I feel like you're just a ball of love, girl. Like
Thank you.
An energy of love. Everything you do is so passionate. You put love into everything you do. And I want to end this with a spread love gem. Give us a little spread love gem. If you can, bring a Brooklyn girl. I want one of those.
I think, you know, my spread love gem is, you know, something that is not glorified and something that's not made to look glamorous and bossy to women and to young women is go to school. Go to motherfucking school. Go get a real education. Instagram is not a real education. Booking now is not going to last forever, nor is it enriching. It's like, I believe that everybody is so enamored by Fashion Nova, being an Instagram model, making this, you know, type of money, being rich, right? And that it doesn't come with hard work. You know, people just don't wake up and get endorsement deals and be like, oh, I'm so fabulous. Let me live this fabricated life where all I do is get cute, get body surgery, work out, eat, do nothing. And it's like, you know, a boss, a CEO, you barely got time to do your nails. You barely got time to go get your hair done. Like, you don't always look 100%. You know, you have to sit here and you have to understand that in anything you do, if you want to be a boss, it takes hard work. And it takes for you to really learn and master your craft to a point where you don't have people now who have formally studied a lot of the work that they're doing now. And it's like, there's a recipe for all kinds of business. There's a recipe for all kinds of work. And you have to sit here, learn the recipe, you know, educate yourself. One of the most beautiful and sexiest things I think on a woman is being able to enrich your mind. And as a young woman, you know, women that are coming out of high school, you know, what are you doing in your late teens, early 20s? Shit, go to school. You know, by the time you finish a degree, you're going in at 18, you're coming out 21, 22, that's your first degree. Go in, put another degree under your belt. 25, you good. Get a little crib, chill, start living your life, go back. Finish that shit. Take that shit all the way to the professional level, because you don't know what it means to get true respect until you put some letters behind your name. I think it's super important to pursue education, and not only pursue it just to satisfy your parents and to satisfy the people around you. It's important to invest in a good education, to really push yourself and challenge your mind to learn. Not enough Black and Latinas focus on maths and sciences. We don't pursue those degrees anymore. A lot of African American women have contributed to mathematical equations and how we know science right now. And it's like, how could you abandon that? And we don't have enough women pursuing, you know, there's not enough Latinas in any of Ivy Leagues. You know, they have a quota for African Americans, and they have a quota for minorities. Those minorities are never Latin. They're always Asian, Indian, Chinese, but they're never Latin, because unless you push that home, we're not pursuing it. The key is like, you got to want it for yourself. The starting point to your life is pursuing higher education, and not only pursuing it, but excelling at it. And so I want to spread the educational love. Like,
you're awesome.
We need to make school look glamorous again. We need to make school look like the goal.
Something that no money, no anything could take away from you. When you get that,
the goal.
It's yours.